you guys? Are you kidding me? Bolly, this is it. Our new advertisement. Heidi sashaying in to the Jackson Center. It doesn't get any better than that. Oh, that's perfect. Perfect harmony.
Practiced here.
Met Roosevelt in 1911 as a state senator, and he became governor and made him head of the criminal commission and the criminal law. And then he went down there, gave him a low-level job as assistant attorney general of criminal revenue. He went after Andrew Mellon and got $1.5 million in back taxes, but he didn't get any cash. He got the Mellon art collection, which is down in West Wing for the gallery. Roosevelt was down the line beside Jackson.
Good to see you too.
This is Dan. We have a local company that's, I think, going to maybe get a contract.
Great. Jamestown's so lucky to have you here.
Come on. This is the grant room.
Why do they call it the grant?
Ulysses Grant was here in 1875 when he came to help start Chicago. He knew that one of the founders of Chicago had lunch here.
He was
He wouldn't go to Fenton's
former
mansion.
president.
He was president. But he wouldn't go to Fenton's mansion, who had been the first Republican governor in New York, because he hadn't endorsed him in 72. So he came up here to this mansion. The guy was so
Late old 19th century.
This is the nation that built this connection stuff. Jackson was the nation. Becky Robbins, our program director here.
Nice to see
Paul
you.
Benson on our education committee here.
Paul? Hi. How many months, Tom?
50 months.
50 months.
To Chautauqua County. Somebody told me I set the record. I don't know if that's true, but I love coming back here. First, to learn more about the local issues and problems that I can help with. Letting people know today that we have a couple of bits of good news. The Jamestown Fire Department has gotten a $50,000 fire grant to help them with their preparations for 9/11. And we were able, once again, to get money for the airport to make sure it's part of essential air service. Having air service here is very, very important to the companies that are here, the people that are here, etc. So that's two little bits of good news that I'm bringing. But most importantly, I like to meet with the leaders, the business leaders, the political leaders, the labor leaders, the community leaders, and learn what's going on. There's no better way than being here. You know, you can read the newspapers, you can talk on the telephone, but until you're face-to-face with people and see the look in that farmer's eye about what's wrong with the grape crop or the dairy price, until you sit down, really get the full breadth of what people are asking you to do and how you can help. So I love coming back, and boy, today's a day. God gave us a great day. The air smells a lot better than it does in New York City, and it's just perfect.
How about, and we know you're moving on to Olean, and we won't be going with you. Any special news for Olean?
Yeah, well, in Olean, we're talking about a number of different things. We're talking about a little help for St. Bonnie's, a great university. It's run into a little trouble, but it's really important for that part of the state. And we're also helping with water and sewage. They have some plans there for water and sewage development and need some federal help. You go to every part of the state, and there is something that needs to be done that Washington can help with, and I like to be hands-on and be there.
Can I ask you about
What else, Scott?
Just the Medicare
the tax bill to get some money to help both Chautauqua and Cattaraugus counties with their Medicaid burden, which is the number one burden faced here. And each county will get significant dollars out of the federal tax bill because of our efforts. How much?
1.7 million.
Chautauqua will get $1.7 million, which is really helpful. I think Cattaraugus will get in the high hundreds of thousands, in the $800,000-900,000 range. So this is money that prevents the property tax from going up any further, that helps good county executives like Mark Thomas allowing him to deliver the services. So we have some good things to announce, but we have a lot more to do. This is a great part of the state. We've had some rough times in Western New York and the Southern Tier over the last decade, but I think things are going to get better. The workforce is better than just about anywhere in the country. You can ask Cummins Engines about that when they decided to keep their plant and expand it here. And I think when the economy turns back up, the national economy, companies are going to start looking again at areas like this. We're not going to be the lowest cost areas around, but we do have the best labor force. And when you need sort of a well-educated labor force, as you do for so many different kinds of businesses, go to Cummins Engine and you'll see lots of guys still with muscles and the flannel shirts, but they're not turning wrenches, they're not moving forklifts, they're working on computers. And that's what we have such a good educational system down here in terms of both elementary, secondary schools and colleges, that it's going to help us in the next decade. People have started to pay attention to New York, to upstate New York, in terms of it being a good business opportunity. So whereas for the last 20 years we saw businesses leaving, I think when the economy turns back around in a year or two, the national economy, you're going to find businesses looking, giving a real careful look, places like Chautauqua County and Cattaraugus County.
Hey Chuck, we gotta go.
Okay.
With him in Albany, and then he went on to greater and higher things in Congress, and then ultimately into the U.S. Senate, and we're very pleased to have him here at the Jackson Center today. So, Chuck Schumer, Senator Schumer, welcome to the Jackson.
Well, thank you, Raleigh, and it is great to be back. This is my 11th visit to Chautauqua County since I've become senator. Thank you, Nancy. I like your new haircut. Very nice, Nancy. I knew Nancy when she worked in the state senate, and I was in the state assembly. But somebody said, this is my 11th visit here, somebody said I've set a record for senators throughout their terms, let alone in the first term, but I'll be back many, many times. I love coming here. And I thank all of you for the turnout. A couple of things I wanted to mention. First, I want to thank Raleigh just for being the great guy he is. We were friends in the assembly. We sat right near one another. Raleigh would fly his little Piper Cub from Jamestown to Albany. Cessna, sorry. We fly a Beechcraft Bonanza, so just landed at the airport. All these single-engine, beautiful little planes where you get to really see the countryside when you fly over them. But he would fly me around on Tuesday nights when the assembly wasn't meeting late. We would fly and go to different restaurants in the area. And Raleigh is just a great guy. And I did want to say this. I mean, the work he's done on this Jackson Center is just amazing. And it's symbolic to me of this area. Somehow or other, there's something special about the people in Chautauqua County. And you see it in the elected officials, whether they be Democrat or Republican, whether they, be at the state level, local level, federal level. I have not met an elected official representing this area who really is not an honorable, trying to do the right thing, classy person. And that applies to Stan Lundeen, my former colleague in Congress, and Raleigh Kidder, my former colleague in the Assembly, as well as our present elected officials such as Bill Parmet and Mark Thomas, Pat McGee. Everybody has the reputation of being a straight shooter and really working hard for the area without all the without all the bunk you often find associated with politics. And I think it's appropriate that we're here at the Jackson Center because Justice Jackson had that reputation on the court. He was a straight shooter. He called it as he saw him, and something that really appeals to me here at the Jackson Center. As you know, I've been very involved lately in the discussions as to who should be on the federal bench. And I've had three standards all along. One is excellence, legal excellence. We should not, these are very important positions, U.S. Supreme Court above all, but all the federal courts, lifetime appointment. We should not have someone's brother-in-law, someone just because they labored in the party vineyards, get that kind of appointment. The second is moderation. I don't like judges too far right or too far left. Judges at the extremes, judges who tend to be ideologues, don't do what the Founding Fathers said that judges should do. And the Founding Fathers, what a great bunch of geniuses. I mean, they were called the greatest bunch of practical geniuses ever assembled. And you put all those words together, greatest, group, I think it was group, not bunch, excuse me. I'm in grape country, so I'm talking bunches. Practical and genius. And you put it all together, they were. And they didn't want judges to make law. And you know, in the liberal courts of the 60s, judges made law from the left. And now in the very conservative courts of this era, they are making law from the right. They're both wrong. And so I look for judges who are moderate. And Justice Jackson was that type of judge. He was legally excellent, had one of the great legal minds, didn't even go to college, read the law, but just was so good he advanced through the ranks and did so many things. And at the same time, he was a moderate. He didn't like the ideologues. And, you know, if God had given him a few more years, he would have even influenced our country even more when he went back to the Supreme Court after doing what he did at Nuremberg. So it's appropriate to be here because I think Justice Jackson symbolizes what this county is all about, and what this county is all about is really the best of America. Hardworking people, people of moderate ways, as they sometimes say in the Pennsylvania Dutch country, people who are the root of what this country is all about. And so I'm glad to be here, Raleigh, and I think it's so appropriate that you have honored Justice Jackson and his memory by putting together this beautiful, beautiful building, which I hope we can help out from Washington as well.
Thank you.
So with that, I just have a few little announcements of some of the things we've been able to do in the last few months. Most important is when I last came here, one of the things Mark Thomas impressed upon me was the Medicaid burden. And this is not just true of this county, this is true throughout. And so I worked hard to put into the tax bill, along with Senator Olympia Snowe, a Republican senator from Maine, relief. Because what would be the good, how would we stimulate the economy if the federal government gave you $500 more in your pocket and the state and local governments took it back out? And so we were able to get it. We had proposed $20 billion, $40 billion of local aid. Only 20 was passed. But the good news is that that money disproportionately goes to New York. You know how often we pay more than we get back? This is one where we get back more than our proportion of the population. So of the $20 billion in the federal bill, New York State, it so happens by some strange coincidence, Maine and New York did the best of all the states. Senator Snowe is from Maine. And we get back $2.2 billion, which is about 11%. Of that 11%, New York State is about 7% of the country's population. So we do about 50% better than we should have on a per capita basis. And the money goes into two places. One is for Medicaid relief. And this year, Chautauqua County, over the next 18 months, will get $1.7 million from the federal government to help with the Medicaid burden. I don't know if Scott is here. The number for Cattaraugus County, what is the number for Cattaraugus? Do we know? Yeah, Cattaraugus is in the high hundreds of thousands. So that really helps. The other half of the money went for direct local aid, revenue sharing. So to go to the counties, towns, cities, villages, because they have problems too. And when we wrote it in the Senate, it was 50% to go to the state government and 50% to the localities. But in the dark of night in the Senate, in the House rather, they said all of the money would go to the state, and the state would have the option of giving it to the local. Well, I've asked the governor, and this is not a partisan issue, All three of them are not doing right. Neither the governor, nor the Speaker of the Assembly, nor the Majority Leader of the Senate. I've asked them to fulfill what we had envisioned in the legislation, give half that money to the localities. It hasn't happened, but I would not at all mind if any of you saw fit to lobby in that regard. If the county legislature would want to pass a resolution to do something, if the local mayors and town officials would want to convey to their legislators how important that is. They've all said they'll look at it next year. But that could double the amount of money you get here locally. And frankly, our greatest problem, tax-wise, I'm sort of a Democrat who believes we've got to keep taxes down. State government has done a pretty good job of keeping taxes down. We were number 4 10 years ago in state taxes. We're now 23rd. But because the Medicaid burden and other burdens are placed so disproportionately on the localities, we're still first. We're still the highest in local taxes across the state. This is not a condition of this county. And getting the state to help out more to reduce that, I think, is important. So it's good news that you're getting some money, but let's hope you could get a little more as a result of us working together. Just two other quick things that I wanted to mention. Last week it was announced that the Jamestown Fire Department will get, through the fire grants, $50,000 in 2003. I helped write the fire law in 1999 to make sure that fire departments, under the new burdens that they have, get some money. So Jamestown's one of the first parts of our state getting some money. And we were able to get an increase in the Essential Air Service program, which I know is essential to the airport here in Chautauqua County. So we're in the clear for another year because that Essential Air Service was going to be cut, and we fought it back in the Senate, and it's been restored. So the airport's okay for another year. This is a fight we have to make every year, but so far, so good. We need better air service. And if we don't have Essential Air Service here, we're not going to do well. I'm just going to make one final comment and then open it up to your questions. This is my view of the next decade here. We've had a rough 20 years. You all know that. This is a beautiful place to live. As I said, to me this symbolizes just the heartland of America in a certain sense here in the southwestern corner of New York State. Raleigh always used to remind me when he flew to Albany that he could have flown more quickly to Columbus, Ohio than to Albany. Remember that? You always used to say that.
When I stood on the floor one day and they gave me a cheer, they all wanted me to go to Columbus.
Raleigh and Bill also are versions of Blue Dog Democrats. They keep the party well-centered, and I support that. But sometimes some of them over on the left side don't like it that much. In any case, so we've had a rough of that international economy. People looked above all for lowest cost. And we were not going to win. No matter what we did, we were not going to win. Certainly our state wasn't business friendly enough. Certainly we didn't, both Republicans and Democrats raised taxes too much because we are competing with other states. But even with all that, we're not going to be the low-cost area. And so tens of thousands of jobs left this county and millions of jobs left upstate New York and New York City as well. But the economy has changed. We are no longer simply that kind of economy. We are now an ideas economy. Alan Greenspan put it best. He said, high value is now more added by thinking things than by making things. And he said, even in the businesses that make things, the thought process counts more than anything else. So you'll go out to Cummins Engine, you'll see that the guys who, that it's very, very intellectualized what they do. And you have a lot of guys in flannel shirts, but they're not so much twisting wrenches and moving forklifts as much as they are working on computers. And so in this ideas economy, what businesses have started to look for the first time is the best labor force. I don't just mean PhDs. I mean, even people with a high school education, but who are hardworking, no nonsense, well educated, can do the job well. And I started talking to a group of people called the site selectors. These are when a company decides to open up a new plant, a new office, they don't pick it themselves, particularly a larger company. They go to these site selectors and say, find us the best place. 10 years ago, upstate New York was not on the map. It wouldn't even mention it. That's because in low cost, we weren't good. But now, I started coaxing these folks. And of the 6 big site selectors, they generally work for the big accounting firms like Price Waterhouse, although one's an independent. 2 are from upstate New York, Dennis Donovan of Wadley Donovan from Buffalo, and Dupre, I forgot his first name. Anyway, Mr. Dupre of Price Waterhouse Coopers from Arundecoit, which is a suburb of Rochester. And when I called Dupre, he was the first one I called. He said, you're the first guy from New York calling me. And I said, you ought to look at us differently. And now the site selectors, if you read their publications, they say, come look at upstate New York for about 40% of the businesses. Still on the low-cost end, we're not going to succeed, but so many businesses now look for a good labor force. And we have it. We have more people in upstate New York who merit making $15 an hour and who are making $8 an hour, more than any other place in the country. So this doesn't mean that tomorrow every business is going to knock at our door. But when the national economy turns up, which it should within a year or two, and companies start expanding, I think we're going to find things differently. And I think we're better prepared. Our tax incentives are a whole lot better than they were. They're as good as North Carolina's, which was the state best. By the way, you know which state lost the most manufacturing jobs last year? North Carolina. All the businesses that left here and went there are now leaving there because you can never win on low cost in an international economy. And they're going to China, and they're going to Hungary, and they're going to Brazil. So, Mexico. So we have a real opportunity, and we should be prepared for it. Again, we're not going to attract every type of business, but if we're smart and we pick the right types of businesses, whether it be manufacturing, high-end manufacturing, like the Cummins engine plant, or other kinds of service and thought businesses, we can do well. In the places that have a great lifestyle, make a real difference. A couple of the barriers are still in the way. High electricity costs, still too high. Transportation is now better. I work real hard to bring JetBlue and Southwest to Buffalo, and that will help this area because they don't demand that there be a flight right at every little airport. People don't mind getting in the car and driving an hour to go to a plane. We do that. We go from Brooklyn to Queens in New York City. But they don't want to drive an hour and then get on a little propeller plane and be charged $1,100 and have it canceled half the time. And with both JetBlue and Southwest and Buffalo, it makes a real difference in terms of companies coming here as well. So we're in better shape, and I am optimistic. And the one final thing I'd say is I look forward to working with you, the elected officials, the business leaders, anything I can do to keep existing companies here, which is important. We have to retain, to see that existing companies, when they expand here, and to bring new companies here. I will work with you on. Because I think when we have, when I have not my 11th visit here, but maybe my 110th, 10 years from now, we're going to be in a great state. We're really going to be in a good frame of mind, and things are going to turn around and be growing here again. So that's my little analysis. I want to thank, again, Raleigh and the Jackson Center, and I want to thank all of you. Every time I've visited this county, I have gotten just a warm and terrific reception, and I thank you for it. And now I'm ready for any question you want to ask on any subject. And I'll tell you one little story in case you're shy about asking questions, because some people are. When I first ran, no one knew who I was, 1998. You didn't know. I was a congressman from one little corner of Brooklyn. And I was traveling up to northern Dutchess County, which, if you know your New York State politics, I was 3% in the poll. If you know your New York State politics, a Brooklyn Democrat is not going to be well received in northern Dutchess County, especially an unknown one. And I got up there and I was speaking to a veterans group, about 100 veterans seated in a room just like this. I gave my pitch with all the fervor I could muster. And at the end I said, any questions? Well, no, it was all men. No one raised his hand. Well, if you've ever done this for your business, for your church, for a charity, you give your pitch, and then you say, any questions? And all you get back is, blank stare. You know you flunked. So I was pleading with him. I said, please, any question on any subject at all. Finally, a grizzled old vet in the back of the room raises his hand. He says, you're from Brooklyn, are you? I said, yes, sir, I am. He said, when are you going to get the Dodgers to move back? Any question on any subject? Yes, sir.
Sir, I appreciated your analysis on where business is going to go, but unfortunately I operate a 194-year-old manufacturing company.
Right.
The prospects for our future are dismal. I'm in the furniture industry.
Yeah.
And in the last 2.5 years, 70% of the furniture industry has moved offshore.
Correct.
Those jobs will never come back.
Right.
So, yeah, we can give up the low-wage, low-cost manufacturing jobs. I don't know if you noticed in the recent Fortune magazine, Ernst & Young, you were mentioning accounting firms, has located their tax office in India because they can hire chartered accountants for $20,000 a year versus $50,000 here. Right. Radiologists are now in Bangalore instead of at WCA Hospital reading x-rays. You call any call center 800 number on the back of any credit card and they'll answer the phone in either India or Singapore. Right. We have exported 2.5 million jobs in the last 2 years, and if anybody has any concern about keeping people employed, cost is a factor.
Of course it is.
And they have the brain power. We can hire master's degrees people over there for less than blue-collar people here. And one last comment. My workman's comp bill alone per employee exceeds what my competitors are paying in total wages. We either have to admit that we want to keep people employed in this country or give it up completely.
Right.
I'd like to hear your comments.
Right. Well, what do you suggest we do? That's my question.
We might need tariffs and duties and use it, to carry it further.
Right.
Gentlemen like you and other people in this room pass minimum wage. Fine. Make my competitors have to pay minimum wage or pay duties to it. We have to pay workman's comp. Make them play by the same rules. We have to pay unemployment insurance. Make them play by the same rules. I am all for fair trade, but don't give me a 2,000-pound weight in a sprint and say, go run a race against them and beat them.
Right. It's a very good comment. Let me say a couple of things there. First, I agree with you. I mean, there is this philosophy that just completely open free trade is good. I don't think it is, and I opposed NAFTA, and I opposed the last round of fast track for that reason, because it didn't have any equities. I'll be for free trade when it's fair, and it doesn't answer all the questions. So that's issue number one. Issue number two, low cost, of course, still matters. All I'm saying is when it was the only thing that mattered, we had no hope and no future. And now I think there are other things that matter as well. And so the balance is a little different. And for some businesses, that makes a big, big difference. Not all, but some. So what do you do about businesses like yours, the furniture business? I am willing to explore different kinds of trade measures. I was just up yesterday at Lap Insulator in Batavia. They're one of the biggest insulators, you know, the things that you see on the transformers and stuff. And China was dumping. And I worked with them, and I got a 105% tariff imposed on all Chinese products. When the market turns up in that, they'll double in size. Now, I would be happy to sit down with you and talk about the furniture industry and see what specifically we can do. And you're right. Again, businesses moved to the south years ago. Now they're moving offshore.
A follow-up, and it affects you directly. Kodak just announced they're closing their camera plants in New York and moving them offshore.
Right.
That's very high tech.
Although I give Kodak has really tried to help New York. They still have a high percentage of their employees in New York. They are closing this 500-person, you know, the disposable camera, but they're still going to make the lenses in Rochester. And they try to keep things there. But Kodak, now there's an example. The head of Kodak told me, we are moving from an electronic company, an mean, from a chemical company to a electronic company. And the digital stuff that they do has a real future. And we've got all kinds of incentives as long as they try to keep doing it in New York, and they have. Some companies have really made a go. IBM, a quarter of their American employees are in New York. They're growing in New York. Corning has a really rough time lately, but they've tried to do most of their cutbacks outside of New York. And they, when the economy turns up, will do real well because their major competitor, Lucent, is gone. So when the demand for fiber optics increases, Corning will do well. But that doesn't solve all the problems. I mean, you're right. Furniture industry is a particular industry that needs some help. And what I'd like to do, not only Maura Campion, from Binghamton, works in Washington now, and she just does economic development. And I'd like to get either by phone call or even visit some of the furniture manufacturers here. I know furniture has been very tough. To sit down and let's figure out what we can do. I've had success in protecting other industries. I'm now working, dairy's a big industry here. Canada dumps dairy here. They've twice been cited by the World Trade Organization as dumping dairy products here, and we don't put any sanctions on it. I would now want to see a tariff on every dairy import from Canada here, and that goes to our dairy farmers. So it's a plus for us and a negative for them. So we can do some things, and I'd like to work with you on it. I'm glad you're still here after 194 years.
I just want to get to 200.
Yeah, okay. Well, let us work together to make sure that happens. Thanks. First, I think that we have to do everything we can to keep jobs here. That, to me, is the number one issue in upstate New York. I mean, education, healthcare, those are very important, but if we don't have the jobs, the rest of it's going to all fade away. So I have fought for New York Power Authority and for everybody else that are companies that are here. They can be manufacturing and they can be service businesses, should get the highest priority in terms of the low-cost electricity. There are some who make the argument, well, let's lower everybody's cost by 1/100th of a kilowatt, 1/100th of a cent per kilowatt hour. I think if you polled New Yorkers and you said, if it meant keeping thousands of jobs in this state and paying slightly more on your electricity bill versus paying slightly less and having all these companies leave, 99% would agree with this program. And I don't think it should just be a program, unless you grow, you get it. I think you should, by staying here, you're helping and you should get it. And I'd be happy to jawbone them. We have some jurisdiction, the New York Power Authority gets a lot of its electricity because of the St. Lawrence and Niagara Falls and all of that, and that's federal. And when it comes up again, we're going to fight to see that the jobs for power is in fact expanding, the hydropower part of it. The second thing I'd say is this: in the long run, and here, I guess I'm an avid free marketer. I believe in deregulation of electric power. If we deregulated electric power, really, California, there are companies that want to sell us power from out of state at 3 cents, 4 cents, 5 cents kilowatt hour, what you pay for jobs for power now. Problem is, they can't because of the way the laws are structured. And of all people, Phil Gramm, the former senator from Texas, and I had legislation to let it rip, to let anyone sell electric power anywhere in the country and let good old-fashioned American competition bring the price down. And we were ready to get it passed. We had a great coalition. And then, of course, California screwed up because they didn't really do deregulation. They did half. You can't do half. You've got to do both sides, supply and demand side, so you get a real market. And we're going to bring it back. And if we can bring that back, we can cut electric power costs here in New York. We'd benefit more than any other state because we have the highest power cost per state. And I hope people will get behind it. It's an important thing to do. Yes?
Senator,
There's good news for you in the prescription drug bill. There's a provision, are you either a rural or small city hospital? Right, and you're in good shape. Excuse me. In the Medicare prescription drug bill, which, by the way, I'm for it. I voted for the Senate bill. Is it everything I would have wanted? No, but it has three very good things in it. One, the thing I pushed for, generic drugs. You know, the generic drug will cost you $25 a prescription rather than $100. And I believe that the pharmaceutical industry should make a fair rate of return. And they put all this money into research, and so they pay a lot. They get a patent, and they can charge a lot for the drug. The trouble is, in the last 5 or 10 years, they have tried to get these patents extended for trivial reasons. So they have in one case, they changed it from a capsule to a tablet, and they got the patent extended. In another, they changed the bottle from green to brown, and they got the patent extended. And oftentimes they'll say, oh, we found out it not only helps your kidneys, it helps your tennis elbow, when they get the patent extended. So Judd Gregg and I, Republican senator from New Hampshire, I try to do everything I can in the Senate in a bipartisan way. We passed a law that said you get your first patent and no more. And it's part of this bill, and it will greatly reduce the cost of prescription drugs to you, to anyone else who operates anything in healthcare, and to the average citizen. The average generic drug, which is the same exact thing as the prescription drug, ask a scientist, the molecules are, you know, the hydrogen is here and the carbon, this is beyond me, but it's the same exact thing. Instead of costing $100 a prescription, it'll cost $30 or $25. It's about a quarter to a third the cost. And that, we've got to keep that in. The second thing in the bill that's very good for New York is our EPIC program, which is a good program, probably the best in the country. I was able to get an amendment in late in the evening, and now the federal government can take its program, dovetail it with the EPIC program, and we could have the best drug benefit in the country, better than the one that's prescribed by Medicare. And so we got to keep that in. That's not in the House bill, but if we can keep that in the Senate bill, we'll have a great program.
All right, one more question.
Wait, I'm not
All right.
finished. We have a little time.
Your guy told me to.
I know, forget it. They always are moving me out of here. But the third thing it does is it provides $400 million for 10 years for New York State small city and rural hospitals. We're trying to get the formula. I don't know if Haney's has gotten to you yet, of how much your hospital would get.
We don't have the numbers yet. We're working
But it's very, very good, because small city hospitals like in Jamestown, rural hospitals, I visited the hospital in Cuba, not, Cuba in Allegheny County, which is a rural hospital, they are struggling. And this has a real shot in the arm for you. So you put all that together, the glass is about 60% full. Is it the best program that I would have written? No. But is it pretty darn good, and is it bipartisan and has a chance to pass? Yes. And I'm a glass half full guy rather than a glass half empty guy. Yes, sir. I just wanted, and then stand. I'm just
Hi. Ryan Bean from Jamestown Professional Firefighters, Local 1772.
Yes.
We want to thank you for your support with the Fire Act. Any future support with the SAFER Act for
Yes.
manpower. I've got a list in front of me of things that they'll be spending with the $50,000 that we will be
Great.
receiving.
Let's hear it so people will hear.
Pagers at $28,000. There's some ropes, carabiners, pulleys, water rescue lines, ice rescue sleds. These things are nice to have, but they don't fight fires, and we need staffing on the fire ground. That's why if you could push for the SAFER Act, that's what we really need.
Right. Great.
But thank you.
The Fire Act provides equipment. What we've realized since 9/11 is that our fire departments are under new strains. Even here in a nice rural area, they've had to do more things than ever before because, God forbid, if something should happen, you don't want to be unprepared. And so the Fire Act helps them with equipment, but this new SAFER Act will help with firefighters. And it's modeled on the COPS Act, which I wrote, which provides, Mayor Teresi, how many cops does Jamestown get from that?
We got about 10.
10 from Jamestown, and I'll bet the Chautauqua County Sheriff's Department gets COPS programs. And other towns in Mayville, a bunch of the Mayfield, and I know a whole bunch of places do. And this again is saying that, that we have some special responsibilities, the local burden is great, and we can help. And that's what the Fire Act does, and we're pushing for the SAFER Act this year, which will help with manpower. Stan.
Well, I was going to follow up on the health care, but
Go ahead.
maybe we could do that. It's later.
No, we have time.
Okay. The Senate bill is very good for hospitals.
Right.
the House bill is not so good for
Correct.
hospitals, and as you know, our friend Bill Thomas from California does not like New York or
Right.
New York hospitals very much.
He doesn't like much. He's not a, he's
But
a
he
sourpuss.
is, but he is very smart
Yeah.
about health care. I hope that you and other senators will make it known that the cuts that are in the House bill are unacceptable.
Correct.
That those of you who supported it based on a prescription drug benefit, but not taking it out of the hide of providers. And WCA did finish last year in the black, but
You did. You deserve special credit. Really.
But all
I think
of
it
our
was 17% of New York State hospitals finished in the black. So
In
it's less than 1 out of 5.
in Chautauqua County, our other 3 hospitals did not.
Right, so you meet
so-
about the statewide average.
Yeah, but I just wanted to say that I've known senators, starting with Senator Robert Kennedy and worked with Senator Javits and D'Amato and Moynihan. We've never had a harder working senator
Thank
than
you,
you
Stan.
are.
Thank you. I very much appreciate that.
We have one more question
Raleigh,
from the
Raleigh.
chamber or the manufacturing community. There's a guy back there. I know he's from the
I
manufacturing.
agree with you. I was just in Buffalo yesterday meeting with some business leaders, and they said the same thing. Bottom line is this. I laid out a general, broad, macroeconomic picture. And as I said, I think the next 10 years are going to be better for us than the last 20 or 25 for the reasons I outlined. But unless we get with it, we'll lose that advantage. And that means getting the barriers in the way. And high costs of a variety of types are still barriers. And one of them, as I say, are local taxes. In good part because it's Medicaid, but they're still too high. And having our local governments restructure to be more efficient is something I agree with. Now, how we incentivize it at the federal level, I think that's an interesting point. One of the reasons I told Raleigh this when I walked in, I love coming to meetings like this, is not only do I get educated on specifics, but I walk away and I learn something. I'm going to try to figure out something for the furniture industry with the help of Bruce. And this is a very good idea as well. Maybe we can build in some incentives to help consolidate, to help bring things together. Again, I've never met a better group of government leaders than you have in this county, at the county-wide level and at the local level. And if there's ever a place that could make this work, it would probably be this county. So let's talk about it and let's figure out how we can do something, because there is no question we just can't. And this is true again throughout the country. In New York City, we just changed the whole educational structure and eliminated all these community school boards. That was a good thing. They had hundreds and hundreds of people, and they didn't have to be there. I know, because I used to see all the patronage and everything else that was put there. Long Island is trying to do the same thing. Buffalo is trying to do the same thing. So this is happening in all different parts of the country, of the state, and probably in the country as well. It's a good idea, and I will explore it. Maybe we can talk about it if you would talk to Scott.
For coming to Jamestown.
Thank you, Raleigh. And thank you.
Thank you all for coming, and for those who helped post this, we appreciate it. And the only negative about this morning is we don't have a ventilation system in this room. You probably realize that.
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you.
Great to see you. Thank you.